this story is a living passion. I'm not crashing, I'm not gonna fail an invitation.
Hi, my name's Beanland and welcome to this week's painting demonstration. This week we're going to look at a little bit of color theory. We're going to do a study using triads, or a triadic color scheme, which just means three colors, one of each primary, one red, one yellow, one blue. The three colors that I'm using here are quinacridone magenta, this is Hansa yellow medium, and phthalo blue. The other thing that I need to decide here, which one will be the dominant color? Will this be primarily a phthalo blue, primarily the yellow, primarily the red? And I've, just because the last one I did of this was primarily warm with a red, I'm going to choose phthalo blue as my dominant color. So that means 60 to 70% of the painting is going to be blue. Since it's going to be blue, I'm going to just take the opposite. Just a little bit of red, just really tinted water. And I'm just going to wet the sky. And the reason for this tinted water, or tinting the water, is just so I can see where I put the water. It's much easier when I have a little bit of paint in it. Okay, now the only thing I want to be careful of is I want to avoid the barn, because the roof of this barn is going to be white. I'm also going to do this. I'm going right over this, what will be this tree, and this distant group of mountains, or mountain range, hills actually, because they're going to be a darker value and I can just paint over them. And because I want to be primarily blue, I'm going to start with blue. Okay, so I've got blue. I'm intentionally leaving some of these little areas that are the first tinted water part, just to get some variety in the sky. And as it comes down to the horizon line here, I'm going to just add a touch, just a touch of my yellow, and I'm going to add a little red to that. I just want that to be right in around this horizon line. Actually, I think I'll go more to the red side. Just very, very light value to all these washes. Okay, now I'm going to just, it's puddling at the bottom, so I'm just going to take, rather than mop that up, I'm going to just tilt my board and let the colors mix and mingle a little bit. Okay, I haven't dried it, I've just tilted the paper and let it run a little bit. So this is good for the light value in the sky. I just want a little touch of something that's a little bit stronger, so I'm taking, remember, predominantly phthalo blue, even though I'm mixing a little red in it just to tone it down a little bit, neutralize it a touch. I want it to be a little bit more phthalo blue than that. And I don't want it to be, I want it to be a little bit thicker than the paint that's on there. And I'm just going to do a couple of strokes in there. Okay, I let it just mix and mingle a little bit, and I'm fine with it, except I haven't really followed my formula. It's almost, well, it's a little bit more blue than this red-yellow mixture, but I just want to emphasize my dominant color. So I'm going to come in here with quite a bit stronger mixture. I'm just going to now what I'm going to do is I want to get most of the paint or the paper covered with this light value before I start adding the mid values. So I'm now going to come to the foreground area, and when I do this, again, I'm just going to take some tinted water here. Just really a mixture of what's on the palette, but just very wet. I just want to be able to see where I put it, especially because I'm going to paint around these 3 clumps. Even though this is not going to be realistic color, I'm thinking of a snow scene. I know most of the barn is going to be colored. I'll just put my light wash in there. And the fence posts are going to be dark, so they'll show over whatever else I paint, so I'm not going to worry about them. Tree I'm not going to worry about. And this little creek here I'm going to do separately, so for now I'm just going to make sure I leave that white. And the other bank here I'm just going to not worry about at the moment. Okay, so I've got that now with just really tinted water, and now I need to come in and add some light values of paint. And again, I need to keep reminding myself dominant phthalo blue. So I'll start off with some phthalo. I just don't want it. My real center of interest is the barn, and that's where I'm going to have the purest phthalo blue. So for this part, I'll just neutralize it a little bit with some red. And then I'm just going to, see, I don't really know or have in mind what's happening here. It's a snow scene. There's not a lot happening. It's kind of flat. But if I work with the water, it will create shapes that are far more interesting than I could actually paint. So I'm just applying paint. And I just want to, I don't want to cover the whole thing, so I'm leaving some areas, and that'll provide a little contrast and be interesting. Also want a bit up here. Introducing a bit of my other colors. I don't want it to be all phthalo blue, just predominantly. So I'll bring in some of this, a little bit more of my quinacridone magenta over there. That looks really strong, but it's because there's nothing to compare it against. I'm going to take this bottle with water just for fun, and I'm going to try and float some. Oh yeah, you can see this. And I'll just get something that might quite possibly look snow-like. Just along there. That's, you don't need to do that, but so I let it flow a bit, and I've now dried it off. And by adding some of that extra squirt of water, but also just by the brushwork, I've got a nice beginning of some variety in here. There's some areas that have more paint, some have less. I now want to come across to this side of the bank, and I want this, my center of interest, bright colors here, so I want this to be less bright. So what I'm going to actually do is mix all 3 colors. So you can see that it grays it down here a little bit. So I'm going to do this side. Normally I would, in fact I think I will. Normally I would wet it with tinted water, but I didn't here. I just came in with a stroke, but I kind of like some of that dry brush, so I'll wet some of it. But I'm also going to try and keep some of that, maybe, mixing all 3 colors. So I'll get kind of a gray mixture in here, and gray-green almost. So I'm just going to add a bit of red to it just to get it more into the gray area. Okay, I think I'll keep this for now, but I may well tone it over later. 2 things I want to do. just going to add a little bit of detail of grass type shapes sticking into the water, just to break up the edge there a bit. And also, I'm going to take my brush and I'm going to get a mixture, really the same mixture, some phthalo, some of my yellow, and some of my red, mixing all three together to get kind of a gray, but I'm moving it over to the side of my palette because I want it to be drier than that first wash. So I'll come in there. So you can see it's quite a bit stronger, meaning there's less water on my brush. And on top of that, I'm holding the furrow here against my paper towel to blot up even more of the water. So if I put a few of these grass type shapes, you know, it will kind of keep your eye in the picture. Okay, now I want to address these two hills back here, and this one is further away, so I want this to be predominantly phthalo blue, but I want it to be neutralized, and I'm going to fill this shape in. And because it's far away, I'm not going to worry about, you know, normally I would flick this. I'm not going to worry about trying to make the edge seem tree-like. I'll just put this in for now. Because into this wash, I want to get a bit of suggested detail. Not real detail, but suggested. So I'm going to mix up. I'm using predominantly blue, but I've added some of my other two colors to neutralize it a bit. And then I'm just going to put, that might be a little bit strong. I'm just going to put some suggestions of, these might be trees or something in the foothills or whatever. As much as this is predominantly phthalo blue, you know, 60-70%, I don't want it to be a monochromatic picture, so I'm going to take some of my quinacridone magenta, but it has some blue in it, so it's kind of gone to the purple. And I just want to put a little bit of this in here. I tilted it. It was quite wet, so it's run together very nicely. I was worried the color might be too strong, but you can see it's blended quite nicely. And these little colors I added, they just suggest that there's stuff going on back there. This hill here, you can do the same thing. I'm going to start off with just really a tinted wash. This one is much closer, so it's going to be a little bit stronger, and I'm just going to indicate, slightest indication of actual tree shapes in there. Just want to be careful to preserve the white of my roof. And into this one, because it's closer, I'm going to add some stronger colors. I got my phthalo blue, a little bit of red, and a little bit of yellow, which is kind of hopefully going to get me towards the gray side a little bit. You know, just state some color in various places that is a different value. It's a little darker value. Still really in the light range, but slightly darker. And that, I think, will suggest tree shapes. And I just want to go a little bit more, add a little bit more of the red, because it is closer. And a little bit of the red and yellow. What I'm going to do while that's drying is come back and address this. I've got my light value on it, and now I want to add some medium value. And what I'm going to do is pre-wet it, because again, I want to take advantage of the water. And I really love the way paint reacts with the water when it just kind of runs around and flows in that. Into this, I'm going to add some, move into my middle value colors. In other words, a little bit darker than this background. I'm going to start off with Again, predominantly phthalo blue. And I just want some suggestion of like shadows and that kind of stuff. So just have a bit. And I just know it's effective if you have some of these darker values appearing to go through the white. It'll make that white really stand out. Okay, I will come in with my my round. Take the same kind of mixture, add a bit of the yellow to it, and just put. I do want a bit of an eye stopper here, and a little bit, maybe a little bit along the edge here. And a bit, I'm going to reinforce this thing again. And while I'm at it now, I'm going to go in and add some more to the barn. I want a stronger value because now I'm getting towards my center of interest. So I'm going to take actually quite strong, even though it's really just a mid value. I'm going to come in here. Actually, no, because phthalo blue is such a strong color by itself that I will come in with just the really pre-wetting it. And now when I come in with the stronger value, it's going to run, which is really what I'm looking for. And I want to just have a little bit of break up the edge where it meets the ground. In fact, some of it, why not just blend it right into the ground? And I also want to take a little bit of quinacridone magenta with just a hint of the blue in it and put some just in there. And I just have I've only used the yellow as a mixer, so I'm just going to take a little bit and put it in there. And actually I'll just take a little bit and mix it in with some of the stuff that's happening along here. My barn is my center of interest, and that's where I want my darkest darks and everything. I don't want to go to the darkest darks yet, but I do want to step up, or actually step down the value scale to get something that's even stronger. Predominantly phthalo blue, but I've mixed the other things in it. And just here, the shadow area under the roof, and it's going to run quite a bit, which is what I'm expecting. And there's one